Stick with me and we're gonna turn this nasty vanity front into this beautiful vanity front. The first thing I need to do is remove all the old vanity doors, and I don't need to be super careful with them because I'm going to end up throwing them away anyways. The front face of this cabinet was not in great shape, especially towards the bottom. You can see as I'm prying some of the pieces off that none of it was glued and the nails were barely holding the front panel pieces on. So I needed to restore these pieces back to original or better condition for them to work properly on my cabinet. So I removed all the nails and I sanded them down properly and I glued them back on and finish nailed them back to the front of my cabinet. I then took sandpaper and made sure that all my front was flush, so no edge was sticking out at all. I filled each nail hole and each seam with wood filler so that there was no variation in the front of the cabinet. I also used this awesome product called Sander Deglosser that made it so I didn't have to sand the finish off the front of this cabinet. I will post all the products that I use in the description below so you guys can get those too if you're interested in doing the same thing. Then the painstaking process of sanding all the wood filler off. You can see I left some stuff inside my cabinet because it didn't really matter. I wasn't going to touch the inside of my cabinet. I know that most of you are thinking that this process of wood filling and sanding is a painstaking process, but it makes a difference. This wood isn't perfect and it's really old and it's gotten beat up. And so this wood filler really made it flush and made it like it was done by a high-end cabinet shop. Now it's time to paint. I used a bonding primer which filled in every dark colored wood and nothing shone through this bonding primer, which made it only take one coat of primer. Then I went to a beautiful coat of gray. You will see that the countertop is still the old countertop that's on it, and I wasn't worried about getting anything on that countertop, and you'll see very shortly that it jump cuts to a new countertop, and I have a whole other video on that other countertop. Please check that out. It's a butcher block countertop. You guys will love it. I know you will. Next thing I need to do is make doors for the front of this vanity. So here's my basic plan. I'm going to use nice plywood. I have an edge banding, an iron-on edge banding that I'm going to iron on the outside of these doors to give them a nice finished edge. I got a basic hinge off of Amazon that required a 1/2 inch overhang of the doors on both sides. So what I need to do now is I need to measure my openings, and I know they're a little off by like a 1/16 here and there, but I know my 1/2 inch all the way around is going to cover everything. And I'm going to make all the doors the same, and then I'm going to line them up when I mount them so they look beautiful. So they're all going to be the same size. These four are going to be the same size, and these four should be the same size. So I know my edge banding is going to add a little bit of width and height to each one of my doors. I'm going to measure and add 1 inch, but then I'm going to take off a 1/16 to account for the edge banding. I always like to write everything down on a scrap piece of wood. Then I can reuse the wood later if I need to. That way I don't have to mess with paper or anything. Another project that I did not too long ago left me with this beautiful cabinet grade plywood scraps. So I'm going to make everything that I need to today out of these scraps. You guys can see from my videos, and if you've watched my videos in the past, I don't have any fancy tools. I don't pretend like I do. I don't have high-end tools either. I just have tools that I can get pretty cheaply at used or at my local big box store. So any of these projects are attainable for you to do at your home, in your driveway, just like me. My next thing to do is to cut these out. I don't have a table saw big enough, so I'm using my circular saw. I love my circular saw. The greatest Milwaukee circular saw right here. I'm also going to use a 60 tooth finish grade blade. I got this blade on Amazon. I think it was like $11. You can get them in stores, but this is the key. This is key to not chipping out this beautiful finished grade plywood. Also, to keep my cuts straight, I'll show you how I do it, but this giant 1 foot 12-inch framing square is key. So let me explain how to use a framing square and cut a perfect line, okay? So here's what you do. You want to set your framing square off the edge, and we know that this is perfect right angle, this is perfect 90 degrees. Then we take our circular saw, and you get to about where you think you need to be on that line. You want to be on the opposite side of the line though, always. You don't want to be on the inside where it matters. So I put X's on the outside of the line to know that that's the side I'm going to cut off. You start your circular saw, you start it away from the wood, just a little bit, about a centimeter, ½ inch. And then you push it towards the wood until it cuts a little bit. Where you see that cut, you adjust your framing square edge that you're going to follow accordingly. So for example, if you are a millimeter, a 16th, too far off on the cutting edge, on the edge that you're going to cut off, you move your framing square slightly and you go at it again. So what it looks like is this. You cut, you're a little too far, and then you move it. And you're a little too far, you move it. But you never want to cut your finished piece of wood. You always want to cut the piece that you're going to cut off. People always make fun of me, like my buddies, for wearing eye protection and ear protection all the time. Let me tell you 2 things that you can't get back when you lose them is your eyesight and your hearing. I don't take them for granted. They were given to me by God. I love my eyes and I love my ears. I do not take them for granted. You shouldn't as well. For my drawer fronts, I'm going to use the table saw because it's going to be easy to get all straight cuts through all those 4 drawer fronts super quick. I realized that this blade is not a finished blade and it's going to chip out my wood a little bit. But the deal is I'm going to do the inside of the drawer fronts on the bottom. I know you can stack the wood and it's going to do less chip out, but I'm not going to worry about that. Just going to put the bad face on the bottom. I got a little bit of chip out on the front of one of these drawer fronts, but I'm really not worried about it because one, it's going to be easy to fill once I put the edge banding on. I dry fit everything and everything fit just like I wanted it to. Now I'm going to give everything a light sand. I'm not going to use a heavy grit. I'm going to use a fine grit sandpaper. I'm going to do it again after I put the edge banding on, but this is just to get the edges and everything ready for edge banding. Ready for edge banding. So I bought this today at my local big box hardware store. It is birch. I hear pretty good reviews on it. I bought 2 of these, a little bit of extra. I'm gonna take a test piece and I'm going to test this to see how it goes. Always do a test piece. What's your problem, Mike? There's my test piece. I'm gonna let that dry a little bit, sand it, and see how it looks. I am very, very impressed. A little bit of sanding after it was dry. Whew. That edge looks real good. Time to do it on the actual doors. Here are the basic directions. Number 1, panels should be relatively smooth. Cut the veneer, the edge banding, slightly longer than your edges of your panel. Number 2, hold the veneer from edge to edge and press into proper position. Step 3, with an electric iron, set to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, move iron slowly, allowing heat to penetrate wood and activate adhesive. Follow ironing immediately with pressure of a moving block of wood along veneer edging and pressing the veneer firmly down onto edge. Step 4, allow to set until veneer edging has cooled. Trim any veneer edging with sandpaper, or knife, or razor blade. Trim edges by cutting flush with the end. Stain or finish to desired color to match to panel. Take your big canyon one?
Yeah. Here's lemon.
Thank you. I sanded the little spots I filled. Now it's time to paint. Painting these doors is pretty straightforward. I used a cabinet roller with no nap. You can figure this out pretty easy. The doors are complete. I still will do a few touch-ups after I get them installed, but I'm going to get them installed first. I'm going to install the bottoms, then I'm going to match the tops to exactly the position of the bottoms so everything looks even and fine. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install my hinges on the frame of my cabinet. I got these hinges off of Amazon. They were pretty cheap. I'll post a link of exactly what I got so you can see what I got. But yeah, they're pretty basic hinges. I think they'll work just fine. So I'm using the spacer of one of these hinges as exactly where to put it. I'm spacing that from the top and the bottom on each one. When I put the door on, there's two different size screws. One of the screws goes in the frame, and the other screws go in the door. They're pretty easy to tell. One's skinnier, one's bigger. The holes on here are skinnier and bigger. It's pretty easy to tell which one goes where. You need to pre-drill your screws. Let me give you a little hint. Please put tape. Measure the thickness of the door and put tape so you don't go too deep in that door. The last thing you want to do is come through the front of your door, the beautiful door that you just made. So that's important. The first one went very well. I think that looks great. Now on to the next ones.
I like it.
So here's why the video just jumped to the finish of my project. I lost the last little bit of that footage, but let me explain what's going on here. I put a scrap piece of plywood across the back of the inside of that cabinet, and I was able to screw the front fake doors or drawer slides, the front fake drawer fronts to that back piece of scrap plywood. That's as easy as it was, and I just lined them up with the doors down below. Okay, I hope that explains it. I'm sorry I lost that little bit of footage. Back to the end of this video.
I like all the work that Dad did in this room. It looks really good.
I liked that this was so soft. I love when I helped you make this. Hey, we still have a roll of toilet paper here.
So there it is. It's easy as that. You can do this. If I can do this, you can do this. I don't have any crazy special tools. I don't have any fancy degree in building. If I can redo the front of an old cabinet, you can redo the front of an old cabinet. Good luck.